Master here, and welcome back to another episode of Cards and Castles, where today we will be taking a look at the Warlock faction as we progress further on our faction videos. We're getting close to the end here. We do have about, I think, ninjas and druids left to go after today's video, but if you guys want to see more of these videos, do let me know in the comment section. I'm hoping to do more of these videos, maybe even planning on, with some other things like the archetypes or the buildings even. There's a couple of things out there that we haven't hit with the series that may be beneficial to hit in the future. But well, no, we'll save that more towards the end of the video. Um, just we'll reinforce that idea, of course, as you leave the video. But with that being said, let's take a look in the Warlock faction now and see what's changed, what's improved, and we'll go from there. So where to start with the Warlock faction? Well, going back on the Reddit post about the new factions, or how they're not really new factions, but how they're more grouped, I should say. It's emphasized that Warlocks have Lifesteal, Explosive, and Inferno, which is true. There are Lifesteal units, White Knight and Vampire. There is Inferno, Primordial Flame, Furnace Knight. And there's also explosives that we see, combustion for example, but they're not really the reason Warlock is become such a top tier faction. It's their ability to deal direct damage from the hand that makes them so prevalent. In a game where each faction has their own identities, Warlock's direct damage stands above most of the other factions. With Vikings you have stat buffs, with Crusaders you have health, but Warlocks dealing direct damage is very useful in a game where you may not have enough stats on a unit to take out an opponent with your own unit. You might be just wasting a unit, and meanwhile the opponent still got theirs. So the ability to cause some direct damage is, again, highly praised, and we see those common examples of how they're prevalently used in examples like Blue Fire Bolt, one of the best Warlock burns out there, I think, right now. If you're not running Blue Fire Bolt in any sort of Warlock deck, you're kind of putting yourself at a risk here. If not 3, then definitely 2. There's no reason why this shouldn't be in a Warlock deck. But aside from that, we also, again, have cards like Flamestorm, like Incinerate, like Disintegrate, Arcfire, Witch Bolt, etc. So there's a lot of different burn options here. And again, the fact that they have access to it makes the Warlocks and overall a very strong faction. However, because the Warlocks do hold this ability of direct damage in high regard, you see a lot of their other abilities sort of suffer for that. Inferno, for example, it's a decent ability, but we don't hear it much at all because of how little it's used in Warlocks. Cards like Infernal Furnace have basically died out. It has Inferno, but no one uses it. Furnace Knight, we do see it in a couple of Knight decks, but overall, he's not taking a precedence. It's sort of the burn that you're running Warlocks for. Not the Furnace Knight. Although, Furnace Knights, you're going to be running some Knights, so may not, you may want to toss them in there. Lifesteal. White Knight, we see in some decks. She was actually used pretty heavily when the game, or when the update first launched. But now, again, she's sort of taken a little bit of a back seat recently. Same with Vampire. Actually, Vampire was barely used at all when TEG came out, the Enchanted Grove came out. Originally being paired with Undead for a nice sort of synergy there. Killed that. He's got Lifesteal now, but overall just it is not an impressive change to Vampire. So we see how, because of these high regards for direct damage, that the other abilities tend to suffer. And in that same regard, the fact that these burns, again, are highly praised is also a weakness to the Warlock faction as a whole. Not only in general, but in combat as well, if that makes any sense. We'll hit the combat first because that's a little more straightforward. The way you can kind of easily maneuver around a Warlock deck, and there are certainly a lot of them out there, is getting the opponent to waste their burn cards on targets that you may not value. Blue Fire Bolt on a Scout, for example. They may need that damage later. and for you to instantly have it wasted upon, or for you to trigger them wasting it on a scout, means that it's a benefit for you and one less burn you have to worry about. So in that sense, it's sort of a flaw. As you do progress higher up in the competitive ladder, though, players will be more mindful of where they spend their burns, so it's going to be trickier to draw out those burns. But still, an overall weakness to the Warlocks is the fact that they don't really come with much else to the competitive scene other than those burns. And in a general sense, because of those high regarded burns, like I said before, other abilities, the lifesteal, explosive inferno, they start to suffer. But what about the units that really don't have that? We take a look at examples like unstable construct. He's nearly fallen off the competitive scene, for a while now, and now he's just sort of a card that's there. When he first came out, he was certainly a force to be reckoned with, but now you just barely see the guy. And with his ability, not bringing much to the table, a 3/3 that basically disintegrates itself every turn, it's it's not there for the Warlocks. You wouldn't throw this in a Warlock deck. Same with Furnace, as I mentioned. Pyromancer, obviously not seeing. I can go on with many examples here of how various Warlock cards tend to suffer, even if they don't have and it's worse even if they don't have any sort of ability to them, like the lifesteal, Inferno, Explosive, anything like that. It hurts them. Of course, there are some exceptions to this, with a couple of cards fitting in here and there to specific archetype decks that Warlock is centered towards. Undead, you have Eternal Darkness and whatnot. Kargrom exists, Arcanon exists in the Warlock. So there are a few exceptions, but they're usually more in the legendary category. So yeah, I would say the burns are pretty much the high point and a big weakness to the faction as a whole. But with that being said about Warlocks, let's take a look at some of the cards in the faction that I think have become more prevalent or maybe even more powerful due to the recent changes. And our first example might be a head scratcher, but it's actually the Mischievous Imp. Now, I've been recently looking at this card, and originally I didn't really think to include him on the list here, but I started taking a look at this card, and I figured that, I might include him, and here's the reason why. Mischievous Imp for 2 gold, he summoned. He's got a 3/1 body, very easily killable, but his awakening of 2 damage to a random enemy can prove very valuable in the middle of a game. So, and what I kind of mean by this is that the Imp's 2 damage can actually bring Imp's, attack up to a theoretical 5 for an opponent. So say if an opponent was playing some sort of rush deck, maybe they buff up a Salahar soldier and it's now up to maybe a 4/5 for some shenanigan. If the Imp's damage does land on a Salahar soldier, you now have that 5 attack to take him out because of the remaining 3 from Imp. And Imp's baseline attack of 3 already does trade with a lot of units we do see on the ladder scene, for 2 gold anyway. We've got the Dwarven Miner, we've got the Questing Knight. I also mentioned pretty much it could trade with anything. Again, the problem is it's sort of 1 health stat line, but you're really only using it to see where that damage lies and see if you can hold off yourself from maybe an early rush, or use it to your advantage and hit the castle to get yourself started on some early damage. So Imp does have a lot of variety, and I'll explain more on this card with the next deck I'm actually playing or planning on showcasing, because I do use the Imp in that deck. So with that kind of being said, I'm going to leave it off on Imp for now. A very solid card. I think people probably should take another look at him, possibly, but overall, that's just my thoughts. Again, more on that when we hit the next deck with Imp. With that being said, let's move on to the next card. Now, I kind of already mentioned this next card in the more of the earlier stages of this video, but it is going to be the Blue Firebolt. Now, I kind of pretty much explained the reasons why Blue Firebolt is such a prevalent card nowadays in the competitive scene. You have its 4 damage for 3 gold, taking out nearly anything in that gold range early on. And even then, the later game helps take off a big chunk of an opponent's monster's health points, and it makes it so much easier to remove from your own units. It can't hit the castle, so that is a good thing, or else we'd be seeing a lot of probably Blue Fire Burn decks. But also, the building removal is important here too. You see deal 4 damage to a unit or building. With building removal sort of lacking in other factions, and Warlock being the only one that can really bring that to the table. Having Blue Fire Bolt on handy is really useful for taking out things like School of Knowledge, Merchant Estates, the more recent dojos that have been annoying everyone. So you can see why Blue Fire Bolt is such a heavily used card. And when I'm talking about Blue Fire Bolt, I don't mean to disregard any of the other burns. I could pretty much place any other burn in this list. Half this list would probably be burns if I didn't really pick one card out of it. But I think out of all of them, Blue Fire is going to be the one that you want to go to. And its common status means that a lot of people should already have this without any trouble. It's not a rare, it's not an epic. You're not, scurrying through packs find it. You should already have these, a full set anyway. If you had Lightning Bolt back when it was a Viking card, or if you're just searching through commons in free packs, because you'll, again, most likely be finding Blue Fire Bolt nearly anywhere. So its versatility, its easy to access status, I guess we can call it, and the amount of damage it does just means that Blue Fire Bolt is probably the most impressive burn out of the Warlock faction. So a good change to the card. Kind of weird to see that Viking Lightning Bolt in Warlocks, but regardless, great card. And now let's move on to our next card. The next card we'll be talking about is actually the formerly known as Awakened Rage, now the Demonic Rage. Did I say range? I think I said range. It's rage anyway, but the reason why I'm including demonic on this list, I haven't seen it used a lot, and that's preferably for the better, because demonic rage is a very, very strong card. Doubling a unit's attack is very, very big in a game that's more based on stats now than ever. With rage, you're, again, I'm trying to put in, more ways to describe it, but I just can't say it straightforward enough. The double attack is huge. You can go from having a 3/4 scout to a 6/4, a 4/7 crab to an 8/7 with repost damage. Very big there. And it makes OTKs still a possibility. They haven't died out in this game. It's been a little harder to achieve nowadays, and I think that's for the better. But if you're looking for one, Demonic Rage is probably going to be where you're starting at. Even I think the other day I've created some, I was playing around with this card. I ended up creating a 72-16 Dancing Swords. Merely from the fact that I can get some, constant reawakenings off, and then a Demonic Rage to just blow its attack out of proportions. So a very strong card. I'm not, there's not much really to say about it other than the doubling of unit attack. Just overall a huge, huge benefit to not only OTKs to keep them alive, but to, decks that are more based on stat lines utilizing the Warlocks. You can instantly bump a unit stats up. In the Viking Warlock, you place a ludicrous strength on a unit. Maybe that's up to like 7 now. Demonic Rage, boom, 14. So you guys kind of get what I'm saying right now in my long-winded way here. But with that being said, Demonic Rage, very, very solid card. A little expensive, but, still doubling, again, huge. The only card that does it in the game. So I think it getting this unique sort of ability is definitely worth a try. So with that being said, on Demonic Rage, it's time we move in to our next card. Not really scrolling too far here as we move on to Drain Life. Now, another card that I really haven't seen used, and I'm surprised for not seeing, is Drain Life. Now, you could sort of classify this as a burn, and sort of made my Blue Fire Bolt point, like, if you classify that the strongest of all burns, why are you including Drain Life? I include Drain Life for a separate reason, because it's more of a unique burn, if anything. It's dealing 2 damage and then giving a random friendly unit +2/+2. Those are some impressive stats. For those of you who use cards like Battle Ready and Inferno Shield, you know that that +2/+2. It's a pretty big stat line, and it can really shift a unit's momentum. It really makes them that much more powerful. And to just do a little extra burn damage and giving that buff, you're sort of getting a nice 2-for-1 package deal here at the same price of what you normally do for both of them separately. But they're all condensed. They're all packaged up nicely for you to play at 4 gold. So a very solid card. Again, I kind of have more planned on this card in the same deck I actually use Mischievous Imp in, so I'm trying to keep it a little vague here for that reason. I do want to, again, showcase that more when we get into the next deck. But overall, if you haven't given Drain Life a try, I would say more than Demonic Rage, actually. Give this one a try if you're looking for a fun way to burn and power up. And again, it hasn't really been used much. I feel like it's a very solid card. The 4 gold may be a bit too expensive for you, but for me, it kind of fits well with this card more than Demonic Rage does. With that being said, Drain Life, a very good, I don't really want to say change. This one was really introduced back in Dwarves and Dinosaurs. I don't remember what this was before, actually, so I think I forget if it's a good change. I think it is a good change. Well, it definitely is a good change. Anyway, before I start getting myself confused on the card history, let's move on to the next one. And the final card we will be talking about today is actually the Eternal Darkness. Now, the Eternal Darkness has certainly fallen off the scale of power between, I think, back when Undead was like the thing to play. I can't remember the months when that actually was, but it was I think at least a year or two ago when zombies were dominating, and it's kind of fallen off since then. But now it's sort of risen back up in power a little bit, and here's why. With zombies getting a buff to about to 2/2, it makes the Eternal Darkness of summoning a squad of them in a dramatic entrance-like fashion, which again, that 3x3 center of the field, so you can play it in the top corner and get a horde of 3x3 where the middle is that top corner. So it definitely gives more options to place the Eternal Darkness zombies in. And a squad of 3 is, a total of 9 zombies. So it's a perfect transition into a Rakanoth, or, with the Necromancers, Armories, Fat Bards you have on the field. They now are 3, possibly 4 zombies, and you've just summoned them all over the field for your opponent to deal with. If they have Chain, though, that's where Eternal Darkness may falter. It is hard to sort of position them so they aren't all in chain range. You're going to end up maybe losing 1 or 2 directly. There are going to be casualties from your Eternal Darkness play. But overall, it's just become a more solid card because of that buff to zombies. The little things you see have a big impact on cards like this. Because zombies are brought up that one stat line, it made Eternal Darkness that much more of a threat. And it made not only none dead, but multiple variations of undead more viable in the ladder because they're able to just power up to these nasty numbers 4, 5, 5, even maybe 6, 6 if you're lucky. If you're lucky, because you might have some removal come before that, but you kind of get what I'm saying here. Eternal Darkness, a much more powerful card due to the little change in zombie means that Eternal Darkness just gets that much stronger. 9 zombies right in your face with a dramatic entrance too. I think a lot of people sleep on the dramatic entrance. It's a 3x3 in the center of the board. That means I could place Eternal Darkness. I could drop it, I think, 1 space away from the castle, and boom, zombies are on their face, and it could potentially lead to a spawn block. I'm kind of, yeah, I mean, it is sort of a dead spawn block, but there's a little more to that sort of combination that we won't explore today. But anyway, Eternal Darkness is a much more powerful card. It definitely made undead variations more viable, with examples of non-dead being in that 3k range again. So overall, great change to the card, great improvement, and thank you for saving non-dead. With that being said, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. If you guys did enjoy, please hit that like button, share with your friends, and of course comment down below your thoughts on the Warlock faction with the changes from the Enchanted Grove. And if you want me to, do more videos like this, because I do want to do more sort of everything you need to know videos for things like archetypes, buildings, things like that. But if you guys want more, have any ideas for that, do leave them in the comments below. And while you're there, tell me what I think I already mentioned about what you think about the Warlock faction there. So, if you are new to the channel, though, please hit that subscribe button. If you are, well, what am I saying? If you're new, hit that subscribe button. If you're not new but haven't hit that subscribe button, that's what I was trying to say. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. And share your support to the channel. Help us grow, again, all by clicking that subscribe button. I've said subscribe a lot within the past maybe 2 minutes. I don't even know. I'm just keep going. With that being said, guys, until next time, stay gaming.